Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Adrian Peterson sighting episode of Fill in the Mic. I, as always, am Darren Michael. With me, the man who still looks exhausted because he was out late officiating the Monday night game in Buffalo in those blustery conditions, Mr. Phil Cleese. Phil, did you experience frostbite during that game or what?
No, Phil's fingers and toes are still intact, but I think it's fair to say that when the intros are getting into Adrian Peterson sightings, we've done a lot of these, like a lot. I don't know how many we've done. We probably should know this, but we've done a lot of these, and I think you're running out of things to intro.
You know, I'm
but
going to let you know a little secret.
okay.
But there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it.
All right.
And I'm never going to run out of things.
True.
Ever.
I hear you.
Ever.
That's what makes you the mic part of the show.
And I want to touch on that first. That's the first thing that we're going to talk about after I give you one thing that I read. All right. And this is, I think this is comical. You know, I'm a big MJ fan, and you know, I hate LeBron James.
Michael Jackson?
Michael Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Michael Jordan. I thought I know Michael Johnson also with his gold shoes, but no.
Gold shoes were classics.
So here it is. A news reporter asked MJ if he thought the 90s Bulls could beat LeBron's Lakers. MJ said yes. The reporter said, by how much? And MJ replied, probably 2 or 3 points. And the reporter said, why such a close game? And MJ said, well, most of us are almost 60 now.
Taking shots.
Come on, I thought that was hysterical.
I like it. I like MJ. I like MJ being petty. I like the pettiness.
I thought that was just funny, and he just, he's just silly about that. Anyway, let's get back to our Adrian Peterson. All right, now, for those of you that don't know, Adrian Peterson is, I think he just turned 85. I'm not 100% sure, but he actually was just activated by the Seattle Seahawks. It is his 7th team. I don't know if you can see my fingers. 7th team that he's going to be playing for. So my question to you, Mr. Cleese, what are the 7 teams he's played for?
Adrian Peterson.
What are the 7 teams that Adrian Peterson has played for?
Okay. I mean, all right. So I can rattle a few, but I'm not. 7's a lot.
Come on.
Vikings.
Yes.
Cardinals. He was just on the who the hell? He was just on the Ravens, right?
He was not on the Ravens. That was your other boy,
Le'Veon Bell.
Yes.
Oh God. Oh, the Titans, right?
The Titans. That's 3. And you Seahawks, I'll give you because he's about to suit up for them. So that's 4. No, he did not play for the Cowboys.
He didn't play for the Cowboys?
Isn't that surprising? Of all the teams he's played for. Yeah.
I have no idea, man. I have no idea.
The other 3 were New Orleans.
Don't remember.
Washington football team, which I think was that last year?
Had to be the Redskins. Oh, maybe not. Yeah.
And the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
So it's actually kind of surprising that he's going to go down as one of the greatest running backs in history, and he's played with 7 teams. I mean,
yeah.
Why is this guy hanging on? What's the point at this point? Does he just not know what else to do besides play football?
I'm gonna guess yes. I'm gonna guess that's exactly it. I'm also gonna guess he's gonna live to 97, and when they bring him in for an autopsy, he's gonna be 0% body fat.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
So he's just like a freak of nature. He could still do it.
That is true. That is true. I just, the only thing that I can think of is the reason that he keeps playing football is that it keeps him from beating his kids. Is that wrong of me to say?
Yes. Okay. I was going to be way more wholesome and say the reason he plays football is because he views football the way you and I view going out once a week to jog. Like it's just something he could do in his sleep. It's just like, yeah, let's go.
Dude,
let's just stay in shape. Let's just go play some football.
That makes no sense whatsoever. I want you to know that.
Why? I'm saying it's something he can do. How we could go out and jog, he can still at his age play football.
When was the last time you went out and jog?
I jog once a week.
Do you?
Yeah, with my dog, with someone.
Okay, all right. I never jog ever.
All right. Well, it's not a horrible example.
To me, it's a horrible example. I'm just.
All right. I'm sorry. He plays football and views it the way you do Pilates. Is that a better example for you?
I do Pilates once a week. All right, I'll give you that much. I was just about to call you stupid face. So you redeemed yourself
Appreciate
at the
that.
last minute there.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. So I'm still wearing Jets hats. You're still wearing fake I live in Atlanta hats, even though I don't root for the team's hats.
It's A for Aubrey. A for Aubrey.
Real fan, garbage, wherever I live fan. Yeah, I'm pointing at you.
Maybe I just like the hat.
Could be. But what that makes you 14.
Well, maybe
just wear because I like the hat. I like the jersey colors.
You know, hey, isn't that how your daughter picks games?
Yeah, she's 9. Yes. She picks them. No, and that's not true. She picks them based on the animal, the mascot.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Is she still a Seahawks fan?
To piss me off, yes.
We're gonna talk a little bit about that because I got a couple things that I want to say about the Seahawks. But congratulations, my friend. Fill up your bank account. 3-1. 3-1. 29-18-1 on the season. Your locks, another lock that was successful. 1-0 on locks, of course. 10-4. The only game you missed was, let's be honest, it was a tough game. You were there. You know what the conditions are like. We're going to talk about that a little bit later because I want to get into that game a little bit more.
But another
listen,
game that with 4 days, you don't generally like to pick games with massively crazy weather. So probably in hindsight, if I knew and I did not do enough homework to anticipate there was gonna be 60-mile-an-hour winds. Did you see the video of the field goal kickers in practice?
Yeah.
Lining up from like 35 yards, and it looks like it's right down the middle, and then like right before it just blows to the right.
I know. And
Wow.
the funny thing was that's what happened in the Jets game with the Jets field goal kicker. Every time he tried to kick, there were gusts of 80-mile-an-hour winds, and that's why he couldn't hit an extra point. I mean, I think I could hit an extra point, but that's not
Pure
important.
neglect.
That's not important. But congratulations again. That was a great week by you. And it really, you really could have gone 4-0. But like you said, for you to be 29-18-1, 10-4 on your locks, making these picks potentially 4 days in advance, sometimes even 5 days in advance. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. So congratulations.
For you math majors at home, I'm hitting on about 72% of my locks and about 63% of my against the spread picks overall,
which basically puts you ahead of every expert out there. I mean, I think you are the NFL expert. We're gonna have to come up with a good name for you.
I'm waiting to see if I get the invite on Peyton and Eli's Monday night cast. Do you ever see that? Peyton and Eli.
I have.
On Monday Night Football, they kind of mumble at each other for 3.5 hours with 450 guests. I just want to be one of the guests. Just pop in for a minute. Just do a little fill in the mic quick.
We've got 2021 Handicapper of the Year Phil Calise with us tonight.
From famed Phil in the mic, averaging about 100 views.
Hey, I want you to know something. All right. I did the calculations. I want to thank everybody out there. We're actually up about 20% in viewership this year.
Like it.
And that's not to mention Cappy Pondexter, which is about hers is about 4 times what we average. So great job there. But we'll talk about that again later. I want to get to the 5 questions about the week of football. All right. And I've thought hard about this, and I think I've come up with some really great things that you may or may not have good opinions on. But one way to find out. Number 1, I'm going to refer to this as the wacky world of the NFL. And the better question for this is, what the hell is going on? All right, I'm gonna give you 3 examples of what I'm talking about. Okay, Pittsburgh Steelers, their last 4 games, they tied the incredible, and I can't say winless, Lions. They lost to the LA Chargers. They lost to Cincinnati, and then they go and they beat Baltimore. Okay, don't understand that one. Cincinnati, they lose to the Jets. They lose to the Browns. They destroy the Raiders. They absolutely obliterate the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then they lose to the Chargers badly. And then you've got Seattle. Seattle's 4-8. They actually won. They beat San Francisco for the 2nd time this season. And they've also won at Indianapolis. So they're beating. I mean, San Francisco's a decent team. Indy, we've seen is very easily gonna is challenging for their division. They may even pull it out. So does any of this make sense to you whatsoever?
I mean, it does, in that the NFL is a league filled with parity. And I always joke with you, because we do lots of NFL picks and we've done them for years and years and years. And while I'm having a good year, but I don't get this stuff right all the time. I certainly have had my share of debacles. I always say, do not fall prey to the recency bias, because teams can look wildly different week to week. And I think you get that with the fact that there's so much parity, that even a mediocre to bad Seahawk team still has a fairly top flight quarterback and is still dangerous on occasion. And then you can't quantify all the different nuance of all the things that happen in a season. But yeah, I mean, there are some crazy situations, like how the Bengals lay that egg last week, this past Sunday, when they've been playing good ball, and the Chargers come out east to play them and they look like the horrible team. You just never know. You just never know.
You know what? It really goes to show you that the phrase any given Sunday is true. And I think
it is true.
I think we're seeing it more this year than we've really seen it in the past. And to look at the amount of mediocre teams that are out there is pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. I mean, there's a few teams that are doing well, but even the top teams in the league, I mean, the number 2 team in the NFL has 4 losses. So it's not like anybody, or maybe 3. No, I think it's 3 with I want to say Green Bay. So there's nobody that's truly, really running away with it.
No, it looks like, and now we're deep enough into a season to say this, it definitely looks like a majority of the best teams are sitting in the NFC. And it's highlighted by the fact that, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but the New England Patriots are right now the 1 seed in the AFC, with a game managing setup and just finding ways to win football games. They're not an elite team, and they're right now the 1 seed in the AFC. So it definitely is a league where it's lacking some of the dynamic teams you thought might show up. So we'll see how it goes.
It's exciting. If nothing else, it's a good NFL season. Number two, there are 4 teams that are on fire right now, and I want you to tell me who can keep it up. All right, the Pats are actually have won 7 in a row. They're 9-4 overall. The Chiefs, who everybody was writing off when they were 3-4, are now 8-4. The Dolphins, who started off the season 1-7, are now 6-7. And the Washington football team, who's held steady, I think they're 6-6 right now, they've won 4 in a row. So who do you think is going to be able to keep this up? And what's going on here? I mean, I think you can see that. I mean, the Chiefs, I don't think are a big surprise, but the other 3 teams, I think, could be a huge surprises here.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? We'll have some very some big. So like Washington gets the Cowboys at home this week. Big game to prove they're really here, because as much as they've done such a fabulous job, they're a loss away from being 3 back in the division and it basically being over, or a win away from cutting this lead to 1 and it being a dogfight down the stretch. And the Washington's got their shot.
No, absolutely. And the interesting thing about Washington is their remaining 5 games are all in division.
Yeah. So
2 against the Cowboys, 2 against the Eagles, and then they finish up with the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have asked, the way they started, you couldn't have asked for a better, you got it all in front of you. 5 division games, you're 6-6. We'll see what Washington is. I think the interesting thing about the Chiefs are, if you actually look at them in the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks since they got hot, they're doing it with defense. They're not doing with offense. So can that stay? Yeah, because you can look at the Chiefs and say, if they ever get Mahomes cranking, and you get Kelsey and Hill and the whole gang moving, forget it, because it looks like they've solved some problems on the defensive side. So that will be interesting. I mean, the Chiefs have the best staying power because they still have the best player in the world on their team. And so, they've been to 2, back-to-back Super Bowls. They're still the best team of that group. The Dolphins are a little bit, we'll see. And I'm not going to knock the Patriots. Let's face it. The reason he's the best coach of all time, if he ever gets this team to a Super Bowl, I mean, it'd be just amazing. Do I think it'll hold up? I don't, but I'm not gonna say it can't. Not with him.
Well, listen, we'll see. We'll see. They've got a couple of tough games. They've got the Colts, the Bills, the Jags, and the Dolphins. So on paper, you're looking at.
Listen, I'm never going to bet against a coach who ran the ball who threw 3 passes and won a football game. Okay, I'm done. I'm done betting against him.
And that's one of our topics also. So we'll just go to that one. So the Patriots beat Buffalo in Buffalo 14-10 in what was referred to as blustery conditions. Mac Jones completes 2 passes out of the 3 that he threw, which is the least amount of pass attempts since 1974. They ran the ball 46 times for 222 yards and a touchdown, 4.8 yards a carry. 94 of their total plays were runs, 61% of their total plays. They had 6 offensive linemen in. So my question is this, is Belichick, it's actually 2 questions. Is Belichick reminding us why he's the greatest coach ever? And aside from that, do we need to bring up the Brady Belichick debate again? And question number 3, I got one more question for you too. Is this his greatest coaching job?
Certainly there's some early teams where Brady wasn't, was similar to what he's doing with Mac Jones, managing the game and just getting by. Some would argue the year he won 11 games with Matt Castle at quarterback would obviously be a year I'm sure he'd like to say was his best year since. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Matt Castle sucked after that. So
Matt Castle sucked before that too. Let's be honest.
So that's a heck of a job. It's certainly, we'd have to see how the season plays out. It's got to be up there with his top 2 best coaching jobs. It's probably the Matt Castle year where Brady goes down and he takes over. That year, though, oddly enough, very fun fact about that year, 11-5, and they didn't make the playoffs.
That's crazy.
So maybe it can't go down as his best year just because, like, oddly enough, that team didn't make the playoffs, and this team definitely is going to make the playoffs, obviously. But if he wins the division, which now they've moved themselves into the front running position to do, will probably ensure him of a top 3 seed. That would be absolutely amazing. Interesting, like, what makes the 240 yards or whatever they rushed for more interesting is it's 2021. So in and of itself, if you said, a team played in just out and out beautiful, brutal conditions and they ran a ton of plays all on the ground and they ran for all these yards, you'd say, okay, was it Lamar Jackson? Was it Kyler Murray? Was it even Aaron Rodgers? Like somebody, I mean, they did it with Mac Jones, meaning there was no threat of the quarterback running. They didn't run RPOs. They didn't do anything to make a defense keep them honest. They literally just, with big packages and big tight ends and extra linemen, just ran the ball. And Buffalo could not consistently stop it. And that's absurd. And you could tell after the game, if anybody saw this, the Buffalo coach was like really in a pissy mood and didn't want to give Belichick credit. But what do you want to do? They ran the ball down your throat, told you what they were going to do, and they did it.
Yeah. It wasn't a surprise at all. I mean, they're and who knows what would have been, as far as I can remember, as far as I know, Damian Harris went out with an injury. He had carried the ball 10 times for 111 yards.
Doesn't matter. The Patriots just insert player you've never heard of and see what the results look like. It's amazing.
It's mind-boggling to me that that they go in there and they basically are saying, hey, Buffalo, we're not going to throw the ball all night. And you're not going to be able to stop us. I mean, think about it. I mean, how good does your offensive line have to perform if they know you're running the ball down their throats and they can't even stop you? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And just to let you know, Mac Jones did have 5 rushes for -3 yards. I just wanted to put it out there.
So he pulled down the rushing yards.
So he was actually a liability to the team when it comes to rushing.
So
amazing. Incredible game, and it's one of those things that only Bill Belichick can pull off. And I wanted to congratulate Mac Jones because for that performance, he gets what's referred to as a participation trophy.
Yes, he does.
Give him a blue ribbon. The team won, and he did a great job handing off the ball 40 times. So congratulations.
He gets treated like the kicker in that game.
Or he's he's the little league kid playing right field. That's what he is for this game. So number four, biggest surprises of the year. All right. We've got New England at 9-4, number one seed in the AFC. They're 6-0 on the road, which is pretty incredible. In the NFC, you've got Arizona at 10-2, who hasn't even had their starting quarterback all season. He's missed some games, and they're 7-0 on the road. Seattle 4-8. Did we ever really think that they were going to be that bad? And then an interesting stat that I thought was the AFC has 4 teams under 500, whereas the NFC has 9 teams under 500, which I think is pretty incredible. So of those 4 things, what surprises you the most?
It's the Patriots.
It's got to be the Patriots, right?
It's the Patriots, and yeah, I mean, without doubt, I don't want to belabor I hate the Patriots. I don't want to talk about them anymore. But the parity in the AFC is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there is because you don't have the top heavy teams like you do in the NFC.
That's right.
The parity in the AFC is incredible, and it's going to lead to a whole bunch of last week of the season options to get in the playoffs, I'm guessing.
That's true.
Where the NFC may actually, even with the extra team making it, even with the 7 teams now making it, the NFC may be a little bit more, it may be a little bit more in the bag by the time we get to the last week of the season. But the AFC could be crazy. Like the AFC looks like it's coming to a point where you might have division titles and 3 playoff spots up in the air going into week 17, which is what the NFL wants, by the way, guys. The NFL, which already is the most viewed sport, wants to make it so the last couple of weeks of the year, almost every game matters.
Yeah.
Because, you'll have bad teams, but they'll be playing teams that can still get in, and they want almost every game to matter, and they're probably going to get their wish, particularly in the AFC.
Yeah. It's crazy because if you think about it, the AFC of the 4 divisions, 2 divisions don't have a team that's under 500. And
that's crazy. Yeah.
And 12 games into the season, I mean, that kind of thing never happened. So I think I think that's really interesting. Question number 5, the Detroit Lions finally win a game 29-27 over the Vikings as Matt Stafford throws a 11-yard touchdown pass with 0 time left on the clock. I mean, just an amazing comeback.
Their last fraudulent slip. It was not Matt Stafford. He's moved on.
I meant Goff. You're right. Wow. You're right. Thank you for correcting me on that. I feel like a complete jackass. So in their last 4, right, they've tied Pittsburgh. They've lost to the Browns by 3. They lost to the Bears by 2, and they beat the Vikings by 2. So to me, this is not a 1-win team. This is not a team that's 1-10-1. They should not be. And something that I found was really interesting, and not a lot of people are gonna realize this, but I looked up. I wanted to see what their point differential was. And granted, you're not 1-10-1 without a significant point differential. But did you actually know that they're actually the 5th worst? They're not the worst in the league. Houston, who has 2 wins, their point differential is 159. The Jets, Jets have 3 wins, and they're at 150. Jacksonville has 2 wins. They're at 140. Atlanta has 5 wins, and they're at 116. And then you've got Detroit at 113 with their 1 win. So is this gonna all of a sudden is Detroit gonna have some life, and they're gonna say, hey guys, listen, we're really not that bad. Maybe we can actually pull off a couple more victories before the end of the season, and cost ourselves Aiden Hutchinson in the draft.
No, they're going to win 1 game.
You think that's going to be it?
Yeah, they got their win. Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah, they have they're a different kind of awful. They're the kind of awful that most fans get more annoyed by. They're the kind of awful where they lose a bunch of games they, are in, and they hang around and they show promise, but they just can't win. They're that kind of awful. They're not like Jet awful that every other week show up and lose by 40. They're not like that. They're a different kind of awful.
The one thing that I can say about them is I do think that they do have a shot to win 1 more game. And the reason for that is the Green Bay Packers are winning that division by 4 games. And the Detroit Lions play the Packers in week 17. So chances are the Packers are going to wrap up a spot. They're probably going to have either the 1 or 2 seed maybe. And I think that could be the Lions' winnable game when they rest their entire team and they bring out their practice squad.
So I'm going to throw I'm do a little fun fact at you again. The new model of 7 teams per conference puts an extra premium on being the 1 seed because that's the only team that gets a bye.
It gets a bye, right?
So
right.
if you have a shot at the 1 seed, you got to play all out to get that off week.
That's
so
true.
If the Packers need the game to have a shot, they might have to play Rodgers in the group.
That's true.
If he's banged up, they won't. But I'm saying if he's healthy and wants to play, they might have to.
And the Packers don't have the toughest schedule. I mean, they've got the Bears, Ravens, Browns, Vikings, and Lions. And only the Lions and Ravens are on the road. And
just curious, did they play the Cardinals this year? The Packers?
No, they did not.
Okay, so then they have to.
Oh, they did. I'm sorry, they did, and they beat them 24-21.
So they win the tiebreaker for the 1 seed.
So they would win the tiebreaker. That's right.
So that's big. That means the Packers are probably the favorites to be the 1 seed because I bet the Cardinals have a tougher schedule.
You know what? I wouldn't doubt that. I think that the Pack schedule is pretty easy, and they're really, really tough at home too. I mean, they very rarely lose at home. But when we look at the Cardinals schedule, what they have coming up, they've got the Rams, the Lions, the Colts, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks. So their schedule's a little tougher.
Cowboys could beat them. They could lose this week against the Rams.
Colts
are pretty good.
Yeah. Watch them lose to the Lions. That would be pretty funny.
Well, yeah. So it looks like I'd handicap the Packers as a slight favorite to win to be the 1 seed.
Yeah, I would too. Let's get into Phil's game ball. Okay, there are some good performances. Tom Brady, 38 of 51, 368 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just when you think that he's starting to show his age, he comes out and puts up a game like that. I hate that. George Kittle, 9 catches for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think the odds-on favorite for the player of the week is Bill Belichick. He's won 7 in a row, 6-0 on the road. Last week he wins at Buffalo, and arguably one of his best performances as a coach. Who is getting your game ball this week, Phil?
Disappointingly, begrudgingly, Mr. Bill Belichick.
We should have named this episode the Patriot episode.
Seriously, the Patriot way.
I mean, it's unbelievable how we just keep talking about him. All right, Phil.
I never thought, by the way, in 2021, I'd still be talking about Belichick or Brady's greatness. It's like freaking enough, man.
After all these years, I know it's crazy. It's crazy. Fill up your bank account. It's time. Are you prepared? Do you feel good about your picks?
I always feel good about my picks. I mean, I'm ripping off 63% wins against the spread, 72% in the lock department. Come on.
Yeah. Listen, in your last 2 weeks, you're 6-2. So you're really starting to heat up again after just a rough stretch there for a while.
It was a little lull. It wasn't too much of a rough stretch.
I don't know. I was hearing from our listeners who kept losing money. They're like, that Phil, he sucks at making picks. I hate him.
Well, Phil's back. Hopefully you stayed on. You didn't jump off the bandwagon.
Phil's back, baby. Phil's back.
I'm a little bit like Alabama. I had a lull in the middle of the year, turned it on late. I'm back, baby. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go back to a Thursday night game. I was avoiding these most of the year.
Yeah.
And actually, we were doing the podcast most of the time on Thursdays, so I couldn't pick the game. We were doing them during the game a lot. So now Thursday's back on the table. I won last week, taking the Cowboys, visiting New Orleans. This week, I'm going to take the home team. I'm going to take the Vikings, laying 3 points against the Steelers. And I'm going to get back to an old tried and true way when it comes to the Thursday games, meaning if you got two pretty good teams, right? There's no disparity here. There's not a big disparity. I'm going to take the home team that got to sit back the week, didn't have to travel on short notice. Also, I like this a little bit of a bet against the Steelers more than it's a bet for the Vikings, but it's a little bit of a bet against the idea that the Steelers just played a great close game against a rival. And now they got to get off the deck and go out to Minnesota and try to keep that up on very short notice, short rest. Now Minnesota lost a heartbreaking, ridiculous game to the Lions. So I think that's the only reason you're only having to lay 3 here. Because I think the Vikings were a little bit more of a I know their records are similar, but I feel like the Vikings are a little bit more the better team here, and you get them at home. And the Steelers, listen, they've been shaky. I just kind of like the Vikings here, so we'll lay 3.
Okay.
The next game I'm going to try to get. The next game I'm just going to go with a team that's red hot. They seem like they figured it out, and what I like best about them, and we talked about this earlier, is their defense is leading the way. So I'm going to take Kansas City laying 9 against the Raiders. It's not a no-brainer. It's a second matchup of the year. They did beat them by 10 earlier in the year in Vegas. So, I mean, it's not always easy to beat a team twice in a season and to cover 9 points, but I just like the way they're playing. And if the defense stays at this caliber, I do think Mahomes is going to figure it out enough to start putting up points. And if they can ever combine the two, forget it. So that's my second one.
Okay.
So my third one is going to be highly controversial, to the point where I know you're instantly it's going to give off a visceral reaction when I tell you what I like here. And I'm going with this game, and it's actually a Darren Michael Super Bowl preview that doesn't look to be happening anymore based on how they're playing.
No,
but I think there's a little bit about this game that intrigues me. And I think the spread tells you that Vegas knows more than the average listener / football fan. And that means on paper, based on what we've seen, Tampa should be a heavier favorite. I got Buffalo on the Barstool Sports getting 3.5 here. So what I like about Buffalo is this. I'm going to pretty much throw out last week's game. Buffalo's a passing team that couldn't pass in that wind. So I'm not going to put a ton of stock in that. I'm going to go with Buffalo for 3 reasons. They're definitely, 1, the more desperate team here. They haven't been playing well. 2, Tampa does not stop the pass. They have trouble with the pass, and I think Diggs is going to have a field day. And I think Josh Allen's going to put the ball in he's going to put the ball in his hands and throw, but I think he's also going to run a lot. And I think they're going to have back-breaking third down conversions where he keeps the ball and runs. And then the third reason is, yes, the Bucs are probably the better team, but Brady's had some bad games this year. And they haven't looked nearly as good as their record indicates, which tells me a couple things. They're beating up the teams they should. They're struggling sometimes. Brady's had some down games. I think this Buffalo defense could give him some challenges. And I get, to me, the more desperate team, who really had a weird year. But if they just beat the Patriots last week at home and the weather's normal, and I don't know if they would have won the game, I'm just saying they lost a close game, whatever. I think it's a different situation. So I'm going to take Buffalo getting 3.5 as the desperate team. And then my lock,
very nice.
I feel as confident in this lock as I've probably felt in any. And you are dealing with somebody who's won 73% of his locks. So this is just a beatdown coming. I think what did I give you last week? Last week, let's see, I gave you Colts -9 and they won 34-0.
It was a close game. It was a close game.
I think that was a pretty good lock.
I think the game was closer than the score dictates.
Yeah, I've been crushing the locks. I'm going to take, this game is just, I'm betting against Urban. I'm betting against Trevor Lawrence, who really does not look like the number 1 pick. And I'm going to take my man, Mike Vrabel. I'm going to take my man, Ryan Tannehill. And I'm going to say that the Jaguars cannot go to Tennessee, good old Nashville, and come away anywhere. I don't think this game is within 20 points. Tennessee's laying 8.5. And I think this is something like, 27-10, maybe 27-7. I think this is, a pretty good beatdown. So take the Titans, lock it up, and we move on. That's that's week 14 in the books, folks.
I like it.
Feeling
Minnesota,
good.
Kansas City, Buffalo, and Tennessee is the lock. Phil has been coming through for everybody, making everybody money. Let's have this thing continue. If you just bet the locks, you're up big time this year.
Christmas presents for the kiddies. Come on.
That's right. That's how you're going to pay for it. So that's what I plan on doing. I plan on taking Tennessee. You know what? If I say that, they're going to lose. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, stay away from it, you jinx.
Oh, all right. Good. We got through NFL. Now let's turn our attention to what everybody wants to talk about and what we really want to talk about, and that is college football. Football. As we know, the college football playoff came out, and turns out Alabama number 1, Michigan number 2, UGA number 3, and Cincinnati number 4, or exactly what I had predicted when I was talking to my wife after all the games. It's interesting this year because there's really no controversy as far as the top 4 teams. I mean, basically, I think everybody's in agreement, which is very, very strange. But I do think there's some controversy with the seeding, and we can get into that a little bit. But let's just recap some of the games from last week. Alabama really out of nowhere came out and put a hurting on the formerly undefeated UGA team, which I know you want to talk about because you were not surprised by how that game ended up. Michigan, number 2 Michigan, just absolutely obliterated number 13 Iowa. I remember
phony 13. That wasn't a real 13 ranking.
Oh yeah, it was a bunch of crap. But I remember telling my dad, we were watching the game, he was here this weekend, and I remember saying, don't be surprised if Michigan wins this by 30. Well, they won by 39, so I was wrong. Cincinnati took care of business, 35-20 over number 21 Houston. Number 17 Utah absolutely destroyed a team that was near the top of the rankings for most of the season, and that's number 10 Oregon, 38-10. Ouch.
They beat them the same way they beat them 2 weeks earlier, which is amazing. God. They beat them. They just destroyed them twice in a 3-week span. So nobody could ever argue who the better team is there.
No, and that kind of thing doesn't happen. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it, to beat the same team twice in one season is tough, but to put just a clubbing on them like they did, and then the game of the week ended up being number 9 Baylor beating number 5 Oklahoma State. And it turns out it wouldn't have mattered. They didn't kick them out of the playoff because the other teams, well, and you can talk about that, but it was interesting because, basically it was 4th down and Oklahoma State's, running back tried beating the guy out around the corner and actually dove for the end zone and missed it by about a foot. So it was just an
incredible game. It was by the way, that was the noon kickoff for you Eastern Standard folks.
Yep.
And it was the only good game of the week. I mean, it really was.
It really was. Yeah. It was a great game.
You got the great game at noon, and if you were waiting for later in the day to watch good games, you didn't get any.
Right. That's absolutely right. So it was interesting. So talk to me about the seedings do you think that the committee got the seedings right?
No, and again, they lucked out this year that the 4 teams were the 4 teams, right? So on a rare occasion, it works out that way. With all due apologies to Columbus, Ohio fans, because I know Ohio State belongs in the playoffs every year, and I'm sure there was someone in the ESPN media world figuring out how 10-2 non-champion Ohio State belonged in over Cincinnati. But with apologies to Columbus, Ohio State didn't make it this year. Got to be a little salty there. Throw that in. The seeding isn't really right. My problem with the seeding is simply once they decide to put 2 of any conference in, then it just becomes how do we avoid a rematch, which is not how any playoff should be done, right? There's so many flaws in a process where you say, okay, I'm going to manipulate the four seeds so I don't have a rematch, when that's not how any other playoff is done. It doesn't matter if, pick your favorite sport, if the Patriots and Bills meet twice in the last 3 weeks of the year and they finish in seedings to face each other the first week of wild card round, they're playing again. The NFL doesn't go, nobody wants to see this, we're gonna have to change it. That's not how it works. So the real right 4, and as I'm sure most of our viewers have learned, I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I hate Michigan. Michigan is the number 1 seed. They're the number 1 seed simply because the Big Ten was maybe a peg below the SEC, but Michigan has been better throughout the year. Their loss was a very close loss on the road in Michigan State. So they have the better loss between them and Alabama. They may not have the better win, but that's debatable. And I'll get into why that's debatable. But the point is, Michigan's really the 1 seed. And then the 2, 3, 4 is where you can squabble. Alabama's clearly the 2. I would argue Cincinnati and Georgia, probably Georgia's 3, Cincinnati's 4, based on how, but you could go either way. I would have no problem with Cincinnati being 3, Georgia 4. I think the interesting thing is, and one is hypothetical and then one is more about Georgia. The hypothetical is, I don't agree. If Oklahoma State would have won that game, they would have had 3 top 15 wins. Their loss wasn't a good loss. That would have been the big ding against Oklahoma State. But I think that the argument, as it turned out, and this would be surprising to some, I don't think the argument was ever going to be about Cincinnati once they pounded Houston. I think Cincinnati was in. I think Cincinnati's only the 4 seed, by the way, in the committee's mind because they were avoiding a rematch and they wanted to make Alabama the 1 seed. I truthfully think if Oklahoma State would have won, it would have come down to Oklahoma State and Georgia for the last seed. And that's because Georgia lost so badly. And if you actually, boys and girls, and I fell victim to this as well, but if you actually look at Georgia's record this year, yes, they dominated teams, but the SEC East was very weak. Very, let me emphasize this, abysmally weak. Florida was garbage. A lot of teams were garbage in the SEC East. And Georgia's big win is what? Really, honestly, take a step back, Georgia fans, and I'm looking at you here in Athens and all across the great state of Georgia. What is Georgia's big win? Beating at the time what turned out to be a horrible Clemson team 10-3.
Yeah.
And I say horrible because that was the bad version of Clemson. They turned around and had a good year. But the first month, Clemson lost 3 games. So Georgia beat Clemson 10-3. So the one good defense Georgia faced, they couldn't score on. Then as the season went on, what's their big win? Give me their this is where Georgia. No, what they did do was they blow everybody out.
That's right.
They played excellent in terms of those computer game control, whatever. They dominated. They beat a bunch of, whatever teams. But Georgia didn't get tested all year.
No.
Tested by a really good team. Give me, I don't know if you have it up, but give me Georgia's big wins all year. They don't have them.
I could pull it up.
They just, it went as a foregone conclusion that Georgia was the number 1 team all year, and they were 12-0 in the SEC. So obviously they deserve being the number 1 team based on their first 12 weeks. But if you dig in a little bit and you looked at how Clemson ended up struggling that first 5-6 weeks of the year, that 10-3 win actually was a little bit more alarming when you look now at the whole body of work. Well, and then give me their big wins.
Let's talk about this, okay? Here's the teams that they beat. They beat.
Give me the whole thing. Yeah, give me the whole thing.
Okay. They beat UAB. They beat South Carolina. They beat Vanderbilt. 3 garbage teams. Okay.
Total garbage.
They beat Arkansas, who's actually ranked. They beat them 37-0. But Arkansas is not a great team.
No, and Arkansas, again, it's not to beat up. It's the committee, though. The committee wants to put the bottom. They put a bunch of SEC teams 21-25 that all have 4 losses.
Absolutely.
And they want you to believe they're top 25 teams. But in reality, it is extremely debatable. When you get to 21-25, it's very debatable between 21-40. It starts to be a bunch of 4-loss teams and who you want to put there.
You know what? Here's the thing.
What's Georgia's other big wins? Arkansas?
They beat Arkansas. They beat Auburn by 24. They beat University of Kentucky by 17. These are good teams, but they're not great teams. They crushed Florida, Missouri, Tennessee, Charleston Southern. I thought they were going to give them a game. They won by 49.
Do you see what I mean, though? When you take a step back now,
listen, 100%, 100%.
And again, here's where I'm going to throw if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If they come out and dominate Michigan, okay, then I'm going to say, you know what? They ran into the team they just can't beat. They ran into their kryptonite.
That's right.
Nick Saban in Alabama is their kryptonite. Kirby Smart sees the Crimson Tide and he just melts. But I will say this too, and so I want to be fair to Georgia. I actually love them against Michigan because I just think they match up well. So it's one of those situations where I do think matchups make games. And I think Georgia matches up really well with Michigan. Why I say that is I've actually seen Michigan play 5 or 6 times this year. Michigan has a weak quarterback. Not a knock on Michigan. Their quarterback's not good.
No.
Michigan is extremely one-dimensional. They can run the football with multiple backs and a lot of exotic type plays. If you watch the Iowa game, they hit on a really nice, almost like an offset play with a running back who beat very mediocre speed Iowa defenders to a corner and made a touchdown. And then the following series, they threw a halfback pass for 75 yards.
I saw that.
And the game was over before it started based on those 2 plays.
Absolutely.
But Iowa posed no threat to them.
No.
Georgia's gonna stop the run and say, okay, Cade McNamara, I think that's his name. Cade beat us. But I'm just saying, we got to pump the brakes a little bit on this idea that Georgia was this great team. because Georgia has and I said this to my brother-in-law, we were watching the game together, the Alabama-Georgia game. He looked at me and he's like, who do you got in this game? I go, if I wanted to bet this game, I would have bet the house on Alabama. It's just because of this. One guy had a Heisman Trophy winner. One guy had a 5'11" walk-on at quarterback. That makes for a cute story.
Well,
but Stetson
right.
Bennett posed no threats to Alabama.
No, but here, I want you to at least think about this, okay? When you look at the 4 teams that are in the playoffs, okay, it's almost like they're tripping over themselves to see who has the easier schedule this year. Okay, nobody really. The only
Michigan probably had the best schedule.
Dude, let me just go through. Let me go through the list of unranked teams that they beat. Okay, Western Michigan, Washington, Northern Illinois, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Northwestern.
Yeah,
okay?
I mean,
there's not a good team there. And then they lost to MSU, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they beat a horrendous Indiana team. Then they barely squeaked by a Penn State team that's the tale of two halves. I mean, they've been terrible in the second half.
Yep.
Then they destroyed a Maryland team that's no good.
Yep.
And then they went in, they beat OSU,
yep.
Who was ranked number 2 at the time, and they crushed Iowa, who was way overrated. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Iowa lost their 2 tough games this year.
So if you're looking at body of work, you're talking about 4 schools that really were really, really good because they didn't really play anybody good at the end of the day. Their schedules were not difficult.
No, I agree. And if you actually looked at, and I think Cincinnati's a much more live underdog in the game against Alabama. Again, I don't think they seeded the teams correctly, but the best 2 quarterbacks are on Alabama and Cincinnati by far.
Oh yeah.
By far. And typically when you do get into these playoff games, the mobile, really talented quarterbacks give whoever they're facing trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are making a big mistake if they count Cincinnati out of the game because they have a excellent, older, been there, done it quarterback who is mobile against not a great vintage Alabama defense.
Well,
I think that's going to give some trouble to Alabama.
I don't necessarily disagree, but Vegas is saying something different than what you're saying.
Yeah, I get it. I understand.
I mean, Vegas is given. I mean, they're giving Alabama a 2-touch. I mean, no respect whatsoever for Cincinnati, the only undefeated team left in football.
That's fine. I get it.
14 points, and they're also giving Georgia 7 points over a really good Michigan team.
A really good Michigan team, but a bad matchup. So it's not a good matchup. I feel really confident that if Kirby Smart can get his head out of his, and figure out his quarterback situation, Michigan should have a lot of trouble scoring on Georgia, like a lot of trouble. This is by far the best defense Michigan's seen. I don't trust their quarterback to do much. So I think we're going to have the reverse games. I think Georgia is going to be the team that ends up comfortably beating Michigan, and Alabama is going to be life or death to beat Cincinnati. That's what I actually think is going to happen.
Interesting.
So I like the opposite of the Vegas spreads, but Alabama should be 14 points favored. I mean, they're Alabama, and they just beat Georgia by 17. Everybody forgot the last 6 weeks. Alabama's 6-week slug through the SEC where they beat everybody by a field goal.
It was garbage
and looked bad. Nobody remembers it now because they beat Georgia by 17.
Nobody remembers their last game where they had to go 4 overtimes against a seriously inferior
backup
Auburn
quarterback
team.
on Auburn, or just the fact that if the Auburn running back doesn't fall out of bounds and get yanked out of bounds, the game's over. They're going to run out another 50 seconds.
I mean,
Alabama's not in the playoff.
Dude, with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Auburn was up 10-0.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, listen,
so, but let's be honest. And the reason that I thought that the committee did it this way is because how the committee thinks. The committee, they love the SEC. Mm-hmm. They were doing everything they could to keep Cincinnati out. There's no doubt. Yep. They think that Michigan is a great team, but they're not in the SEC. And they don't think that the Big Ten is nearly as great as the SEC. So when it comes down to it, they had, and I think everybody really had UGA way up here, because I don't think anybody was truly looking at their schedule. They're just looking at the results and seeing that they're just beating the crap out of everybody.
And I do think it would have been an interesting case. They didn't have, because if you think about, and ESPN does dictate a lot of this. ESPN has some sway because they're the number one place people still consume sports. There was no talk that if Georgia lost to Alabama, there was any scenario Georgia was falling out of the top 4. It was a foregone conclusion. And I even myself said, no, but Georgia's making the playoff no matter what. But in reality, if a one-loss Oklahoma State with 3 top 15 wins would have won that game, the way Georgia lost, not if they would have lost close, but the way they lost, they got blown out. I think it really would have been a debate, but probably they would have screwed Oklahoma State and they would have put Georgia in. But I do think it's interesting if you're Cincinnati, and this, to me, this, if we're writing a script for this playoff, it's 3 things. It's Harbaugh finally gets over the hump and gets to the playoff, right? And he wins big games. He had in his whole tenure. That's number 1 storyline. Number 2 storyline is, to me, a non-Power 5 team finally makes it.
Yep.
And the number 3 storyline is still them. It's, can a non-Power 5 team actually fighting for the rest of the little guys? Can they show up well enough where they get big credit going forward? And all I will say is, if you had to have a non-Power 5 team make the playoff, this is the year.
Yeah, definitely.
By far.
Definitely.
There is no 2019 LSU. There is no 2018 Clemson. There's no 2020 Alabama. This is flawed college football teams.
Yeah,
Every
you're right.
team is flawed. So if you're Cincinnati and you finally snuck into this bad boy, you got a real shot, because there is no great all-around team in the playoff. So
you're right.
This is the one shot. If Cincinnati gets their one shot, this is the year you want to be in it. So
yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
And if Alabama beats them 45-10, I'm sorry, non-Power 5 schools, you're never going to see the light of day again.
I know, right?
So
that's what they're playing for, the livelihood of everybody else.
This is like the Hoosiers movie. They're doing it for all the small Indiana schools.
Let's do it for everybody.
Let's do it for all the little schools.
Let's get out. Let's measure the field. It's 100 yards. Let's measure the goalposts.
Luke Fickle, get out there. Get out there.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So I wanted to keep talking about college football. I think this is really interesting, and I read an article about this, but they're calling this the year of the turnaround. And what I mean about that is, I'm going to give you 4 examples. All right. Northern Illinois University won the MAC. Is that the Metro Athletic Conference?
Okay. Maybe, yeah.
They were 0-6 last year, and they went to 9-4 this year. That's a serious jump right there. Baylor, who everybody knows is a good team, they won the Big 12. But does anybody remember that they were 2-7 last year, and this year they're 11-2? Utah State won the Mountain West. They were 1-5 last year, and they finished up 10-3 this year. And probably the biggest overall turnaround, Michigan, 2-4 last year to 13-1 and the number 2 ranking in the college football playoffs. I got to tell you, man, I don't remember a year where there's been 4 teams that have had such big turnarounds like that.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to simplistically chalk it up to the COVID year was a wild, wacky year? And
I mean, maybe that's what it was. But even if that was the case, I mean, it's still, those are still some impressive turnarounds, and I think the Jets could learn a couple things from this.
Robert Saleh's off-season homework is to go travel to Utah State, Northern Illinois, and ask them what's the recipe. Oh boy.
Now that would be funny. That would be funny. So
did you see Woody Johnson getting off the private jet with Saleh going, "You can learn something. Go ahead, go talk to the Northern Illinois Salukis," or whatever their names are.
Yes, the North.
Go talk to are they the Salukis? Did I make that up?
Yeah, they are. They are. A matter of fact, that brings another good question. That is, what about Utah State? What's their nickname?
The Utah State Fighting Utes. I have no idea.
There's already a Utes.
I know. That's why I had fighting.
I have no idea. I have no idea what Utes.
The Utah State snowboarders.
Yeah, I don't know. But interesting. So the 4 Heisman finalists were announced.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Bryce Young. We've got C.J. Stroud. We've got is it Cody Pickett? Is that his first name? Cody?
Kenny.
I don't even know what his first name is, but he's the quarterback out of Pitt. Kenny Pickett. He's having a heck of a year.
That sounds like a made up high school football star in a local town, by the way. Like if you're making a movie. Kenny Pickett's here, guys.
or a country music singer. Welcome to the stage, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
And then Aiden Hutchinson. When I look at these four guys, immediately Stroud is out because of how he played against Michigan. All right, so he's garbage. Pickett, he got no notoriety. I know his first country song went to #1, but besides that, as a quarterback, he got really no coverage. Nobody really knows anything about.
Was that song? I drink beer and toss the pigskin. No. No.
Yeah, that was it. Yes, it was a great song. It was a great song. There's a lot more to it, and
Dropping dimes and making rhymes. No, that's the B track.
So that's the good, dude. You if this podcast thing doesn't work out, man, I think you've got a future writing country songs.
I think I do.
Just saying. Aiden Hutchinson, the potential #1 pick in the draft, although I hope he falls to wherever the Jets draft.
Me too.
He's playing. I mean, he's just an unbelievable player on that defensive line.
He's gonna be yelling, "Hey, where'd that little kid go?" He's gonna be chasing Stetson around. Come here, Stetson. Come back.
That's right. Can't wait to see that. No, it's what's his name? Stetson something.
Bennett the fourth. Yeah.
The fourth, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Stetson Bennett the fourth. Yeah.
Wow, he sounds like he belongs playing golf at the country club. Hello, right. I'm Stetson Bennett the fourth.
You think he gets made fun of in the locker room? I'm thinking yes.
I don't think so when they were 13-0. Now he may start getting made fun of, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? And then of course you've got Bryce Young, who, I think he's been kind of the leader for a while and up among the top two. I think he really solidified the Heisman Trophy when he beat Georgia. He played a really good game that game.
Well, I think that you get a clue too to how the voting is going to be, because that if for people that don't follow this often, when you get 3 players from the same general geography and 1 player from a different area, it's going to be a rout, because Kenny Pickett, CJ Stroud, and Aiden Hutchinson are going to split the Midwest vote. That whole quarter, the Northeast and Midwest vote. And then Mr. Bryce is going to get the entire vote in the South. And then probably the West will be still more Alabama. And so he's going to run away with it. Yeah, I actually like Aiden Hutchinson as a dark horse, but when you tell me the other 3 finalists are in his backyard, I don't like him anymore at all. So
it's tough. And not only that, it's so difficult for a non-quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy, especially a defensive player.
It is.
I mean, I can't even remember. I couldn't even tell you who the last defensive player was to win the Heisman Trophy.
Is it Charles Woodson? It would be Michigan.
He might have been the only
90s.
One. Yeah,
from the early 90s,
the only
Charles
one.
Woodson.
Yeah, he was a beast. But he wasn't just strictly a defensive player. He did punt
returns and kick returns.
Yeah, so he was also returns, and he was an amazing return specialist too. So that'll be interesting. A couple more things that I want to talk about when it comes to college football, and then we'll move on. It's odd that you've got some big names transferring. I thought it was really interesting that Spencer Ratliff, who was basically, he was one of the favorites, the preseason favorites for the Heisman Trophy. And early in the season, he gets benched and he doesn't even play. And what happens? He decides he needs to transfer. This is a guy that was potentially like a top 5 NFL pick before the season. And now he's got to go transfer to try to salvage his NFL career, which would be interesting. Quinn Ewers is another guy. He was a freshman at Ohio State. And the interesting thing about him was that I guess he's from Texas, and there's some kind of law stating that you can't make endorsement dollars before you're 18, something like that. I don't know. And so he actually graduated a year early, decided to go. He was like the #1 prospect, decided to go to Ohio State, signed endorsement deals over 7 figures. So this guy was making all kinds of money before he had even stepped on the field. And I think he was only on the field for four plays this entire season. And he's transferring to one of 3 schools down in Texas, back to where he's from. I almost think that this was kind of part of the plan, that he wanted to be down in Texas the whole time, but he couldn't because he wanted to get the money early. And so he went to OSU.
And CJ Stroud locking down the job with 2 more years to go didn't help either.
That's not a good thing either. So he's in trouble there. And then you've got Max Johnson of LSU, the starting quarterback of LSU, which is odd. A new coach comes in, and he must know something that we don't. Like he's got his own guys that he wants to play. But not only was that a loss, but also his brother Jake, who is the #1 tight end in the class of 2022, has also decided that he is not going to play for LSU. And
maybe it was that
know,
sweet Southern accent by Brian Kelly that's running them away.
It's true. And you may know the Johnson brothers because you may know their father, Brad Johnson, who was a successful quarterback for, I don't know. He might be playing right. He might be playing right now for all we know. He could be a third stringer somewhere. Who the heck knows? And it's nice that you mentioned Brian Kelly, because as his first official move as the new LSU coach, he comes in and he fires 21-year strength and conditioning coach who had helped them to win 3 national championships and absolutely adored by everybody at the school. That's the first move he makes. So great job, Brian Kelly, really getting your feet wet right away and right away trying to alienate as many people on campus as you can by firing one of their beloved coaches. So congratulations with that.
I'm doing it for my family.
My family's doing it. All right, let's move on to a little college basketball. I know we don't talk a whole lot about college basketball, but I thought this was really interesting. So Texas Southern, the powerhouse that they are, okay, they are, you might remember them as a powerhouse from the SWAC conference, the Southwest Athletic Conference. Well, it turns out going into their game the other day against #20 University of Florida, they had not won this season. But sure enough, they go into Gainesville and they beat Florida 69-54, which is actually the first time a SWAC team has ever beat a ranked SEC team back to 1936. So congratulations to the Texas Southern. I'm sorry, what's their nickname?
The Salukis.
The Texas Southern Salukis. So what you're saying everybody that's a Southern has to be Salukis?
Salukis.
Okay.
So I see the Florida Gators are trying to match their beleaguered football program with basketball program.
That's just, I don't want to say that's an embarrassing loss, but I think the spread on that game was 23 and they lost by 15. Just putting it out there. Congratulations to Purdue, who in the first time in their long and illustrious basketball career from the state of Indiana is #1 in the rankings.
They've never been #1?
They have never been #1. Isn't that crazy to think about?
How's that possible?
That's what I was saying too. But they've beat UNC, who's #18, and they beat Villanova, who's #5. They just happen to be undefeated. Are they the best team in the country? Yeah. I'll let you decide.
That changes 5,000 times.
Listen, chances are they'll lose this week because nobody wants to be #1. The Zags were #1, and then they lost to Duke and Alabama.
Now. Yeah.
Which is one more loss than they had all last season. Duke was #1, and they lost to an unranked Ohio State team. So here comes the parity of #1. You're going to have a dozen teams that are going to be #1 by the end of the season. But I thought that was really interesting also that Purdue was #1 for the first time in their history. They've had some good teams in the past.
I'm going to be pulling for Rick Pitino and Iona this year. So
yeah, seriously. Baseball Hall of Fame. The announcement was made. I'm going to read you the stats of somebody that got in before I go through the list. And you're going to tell me if you think this person is deserving of a Hall of Fame. All right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
He pitched for 25 years. This is his average season, his average. Okay. 11.32 wins, 9.48 losses, 98.4 strikeouts, 1.26 whip, and an ERA of 3.45. Right now on the surface, does 11 wins a season get you into the Hall of Fame? As a starting pitcher for 25 years, I wouldn't think so. I mean, to me, if you're going to play 25 years and you can't win 300 games, which is 12 a season, then there's a problem. All right, that's just how I see it. The only redeeming factor of this guy is that he won 16 Gold Gloves. All right. Do you put this guy in the Hall of Fame? The only thing that I see that he really has done well is he won 16 Gold Gloves.
No.
I mean, that's Hall of average, right? And that's Jim Kaat.
That's a hall of a compiler right there. That's a hall of a compiler.
But it's not even a great compiler. No. 98 strikeouts a season.
Jim Kaat made the Hall of Fame.
11.32.
You just have to say it out loud and go, ugh.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know he's been in baseball for a long time. He played 25 years and he's been an announcer for the last, I don't know, 35 years or whatever. But come on. Now the other guys I'm okay with. You had Minnie Minoso. You had
anybody named Minnie belongs in any Hall of Fame. So I'm good with that.
Tony Oliva, which I still think that's kind of questionable. Gil Hodges, the longtime 69 Mets manager, the great Brooklyn Dodgers player. He should have been in 40 years ago. I don't know what took so long. Bud Fowler, who was born in 1865, he was born at the very end of the Civil War, who is recognized as the first Black baseball player ever. Okay, so I guess that's
didn't even know he was Black. Okay.
And Buck O'Neill, who was in the minor leagues, didn't really get in as a player, got in more of his contributions. He was a scout, he was a coach. He was actually the first Black coach in the major leagues. He actually died a few years ago at age 98. I thought he was going to get in before he died, but of course the voting committee doesn't like to put guys in until they're already deceased. But he was actually involved with the game of baseball in a professional way for 80 years, which is absurd.
Crazy.
So he's also the one that helped found the Negro League Museum, and he did a lot of other things. So I don't have a problem with those guys. My problem is with Jim Kaat, because if you put a guy like that in, who's next? Who are they putting in next? Basically, to me, it's opened the floodgates for every average player. You've got guys that haven't
He'll be the new guy. Well, Jim Kaat got in. How could he not get it?
That's what it comes down to. And there's been some questionable guys, like Harold Baines was a big questionable guy. Even a guy like Craig Biggio. I mean, he played forever. He didn't even average 150 hits a year. I mean, these are not Hall of Famers. This is a compiler. So, you know, the Hall of Fame is getting away from that, which I have a real problem with. But it's going to open the doors for guys that haven't even sniffed a Hall of Fame, like Steve Garvey or Dale Murphy with his back-to-back MVPs. Garvey was an 11-time All-Star. You know, like, it's gonna lead a lot of guys to get in that, you know, haven't gotten in. Fred McGriff with his 493 home runs.
He belongs in, by the way.
He probably does belong in, but you're going to see more and more of these type of guys, and by doing this, the committees are effectively just ruining what the Hall of Fame should stand for. And I know over the years, I mean, forever, there's been guys getting in that were not great. All right, let's be honest. I mean, there's some guys that I could mention that were really not great. I still don't think Alan Trammell is a Hall of Famer. Lee Smith, Jack Morris, I'm not convinced that these guys are Hall of Famers. And there's a whole bunch of other guys. Bill Mazeroski hit 1 home run, and he gets in the Hall of Fame for that. I mean, I have a real problem with some of these guys. It's really not the Hall of Fame. It's the Hall of Fame for popularity. The more guys you know, like Harold Baines, he was personal friends with half the guys on the committee. They convince the other guys to vote for him, and he gets in. You know, it's one of those things.
It's a hall of compilers. I hate that. And Jim Kaat, like you said, not even a good compiler. So
and he's a good guy, and nobody ever has a bad thing to say about him. But that doesn't make him a Hall of Fame baseball player. No. I'm sorry. So I have a real problem with that. I want to switch. I want to talk about one NBA thing, and this is going to be fun for me. This is what I was kind of laughing about before. The Grizzlies. The great Memphis Grizzlies beat the almost as great, I don't even know who the Thunder are, Oklahoma City Thunder, 152-79. Okay, they won by 73 points without Morant even in the lineup. So he didn't even play that game. All right, so they had 12 guys playing, and I'm going to name the guys, and I want you to tell me what school they went to.
Go ahead.
I think the over-under on this one is probably 2. Okay, and you got to tell me how many of these guys you've even heard of, because I needed a refresher to think of these guys. All right, let's try an easy one. How about Jaron Jackson Jr.?
Michigan State.
There's one. How about Dylan Brooks?
Dylan Brooks is a country singer.
He is, but he also went to Oregon.
Okay.
Steven Adams.
Did Steven Adams go to Gonzaga?
Steven Adams went to Pitt.
Oh.
But he's an Australian import. Or
he looks
New
like
Zealand,
he should have went to Gonzaga. He looks like he should have went to Gonzaga.
He's the one that has like all those tribal tattoos on his arms.
But he looks like he should have went to Gonzaga. Okay.
He does. He definitely does.
I'm 1 for 3.
Tyus Jones.
I feel like Tyus Jones possibly went to UCLA.
He went to Duke. Close.
Cool.
How about this guy? Desmond Bain. You can't even tell me you heard it. You
Iowa
can't even,
State.
I've never even heard of that guy. He's a TCU guy. How about this guy?
I
Now,
was
this
in the
guy-
right conference, Iowa State.
That's true. Nice.
How
about this guy? DeAnthony Melton.
Oh, DeAnthony Melton went to Memphis.
He absolutely went to USC, but that was close.
Damn.
How about Brandon Clark?
Duke.
He went Zags.
Damn.
Okay, now this one you got to know. This one you got to know. This one you got to know.
Why'd you have to do this to embarrass me?
Because it's fun. I told you this is fun for me. This one, I guarantee you that you're going to know this one. Santi Aldama. If you even got the conference right, I would give it to you.
I'm going. He's Hawaii.
He went to Loyola of Maryland. I've never even heard of that guy. All right, now this guy you might have heard of. How about Killian Tilly?
Killian Tilly? Oh, he was from the Ireland national team.
No, he played for the Zags again. They have 2 Zags on their team, man.
I guessed the Zag and didn't even guess the right one.
All right, this one you might get. Xavier Tillman.
Didn't you already give me this guy?
No, but he was. I think he might have been a teammate.
Oh, did Xavier Tillman go to Howard?
No, it's a good guess. Michigan State. That was close. And how about John Kuchar? Now, this guy came from a real powerhouse. I'm just going to give it to you because you're not going to guess it.
No, hold on.
Honestly, I didn't even know this was a team.
Central Connecticut State.
Purdue Fort Wayne.
All right.
And last but not least, this is it. You could actually tie the over-under with this one. This guy, if you think about it, you might get. I think he was a first-round pick. I want to say he was like number 6 overall. Jarrett Culver.
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, the man has done it. The man hits the over-under of 2.
Yeah, man. And by the way, I had to eke the 2 I got right out. None of them were household names.
I mean, this is the team that beat the Thunder by 73 points. All right. All I can say is, oh my God. That's all I can say. I don't know what else to say, man. I've literally, Santi Aldama, really? John Kuchar? I mean, who the hell are these guys? Where do they find these guys? And then they win by 73 points. Come on.
That's awesome.
All right. I got some news for you that I want to finish up with. And I want to hit up this one because I think this one is interesting. It's the Max Scherzer salary breakdown.
Okay.
Right, this one, and since you're a huge Mets fan, this is interesting.
Uncle Stevie's got the money, so I'm fine.
He officially is making $3.6 million per month.
Nice.
Which comes down to $58,000 per batter faced, $235,000 per inning. He makes $5,000 an hour. He actually makes he actually makes $82 per minute.
Dude, that's a good minute right there.
Per minute.
That's a good minute. Every minute that goes by, you go, it's another $82.
That's another $82. That's another $82. That's right. So
That's
he's
amazing.
making. So he's literally made. What does that come out to? Over $40,000 a minute. I mean, an hour, $40,000.
And I don't know if you were going to say this, but at the same time he's making that, the Nationals are still paying him.
Are they still paying him?
15 more million over the next 5 years.
Jeez.
So he's making a lot more than that even.
Oh my! They couldn't buy him out of his contract.
No, they gave him one of those deferred contracts.
Oh my God.
So he's being paid. He's almost being paid this. He is almost owed the same amount as the Mets are going to pay him over the next 3 years. He's still owed that over the next 5 or 10 from the Nationals.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
Maxie's doing well.
I got a couple more things for you. Tiger Woods was interviewed the other day, and he said that he doesn't believe he will ever be a regular on the PGA Tour again. Does anybody really care? Let's be honest.
Not anymore.
No, he's done. From the world of hey, if LeBron James does it, I can do it too. Tristan Thompson, who you may know as the baby daddy for one of the Kardashians.
Sure.
He actually had a fan kicked out of the stadium for making a Khloe Kardashian comment to him. Okay. So we talked about heckling, I think it was last week. I mean, are these guys that wimpy that, oh, my feelings are hurt because this guy is heckling? I mean, really, dude, you're 6'10" and you're a multimillionaire. Grow a set, suck it up, and deal with it. Okay. They had to escort this person because, oh, it hurts my feelings that he's going to mention something about my ex-wife. I mean, give me a friggin' break, you little wimp. Just saying. Just saying.
You're much more fired up than I am about it.
Man, I'm so angry about that. That just bothers me. Just bothers me. Jamal Adams, I know he's one of your favorite topics, and I wanted to congratulate him on one hand. I feel bad for him because he's out for the season, and we all know how great of a football player he is. But I wanted to congratulate him because he finally broke the tie for career interceptions with Vince Wilfork with his 4th interception. So congratulations to that. And I'm sorry that you're out for the season. And then I'm going to end on a sad note, and that is former World War II veteran, hero, Republican
presidential candidate.
I mean, I can go on
Senator,
and on about what this guy did. Yeah, he just his accomplishments.
And the guy who makes you the finest peach Dole cans of Dole
That's
Whip.
true. That's true. That's true, considering there's no relation. He passed away at age 98. So condolences out to him. He was a great leader, a great man, and and somebody that basically just gave his life for this company. I mean, for this country. I mean, he basically just served this country his entire.
Bob Dole.
Yeah. So we're gonna miss him, but congratulations on just an unbelievable life in what you did. That's all I got, man. That's all I got. Another stellar episode.
Another one in the books.
We got through so much information today, but I just wanted to remind everybody our viewership is up 20%. We'd like to keep that going. So again, I say this every time. Tell your friends, tell your families, tell your neighbors, tell the people you love, tell the people you hate, put it on billboards, write it in bathroom stalls. You can write Phil's name on there. Whatever you have to do, let's keep growing this thing. Let's keep having fun. And you know what? I totally forgot the last question. We did get one more question. And that is from God, what is his name? Carl. Carl in Louisiana wrote.
Yes. Let's go, Carl.
Hey, I'm a big fan of the quarterback better known as the mustache.
Minshew.
Now that he's in Philadelphia, do you think he's there to stay?
He should be over Jalen Hurts, but he won't be.
You don't
He'll
think
be
so?
the next Nick Foles. He'll be the next backup Bears quarterback in a year.
I always thought Minshew was a good player.
He's definitely an exciting player. He looks like the FedEx guy who delivers your packages and plays like someone slightly better than that. So
he also looks like one of those 70s actors where you hear the music in the background. Anyway,
sure.
I'm not going to get into that one.
Yeah.
But all right, well, good. Well, thank you for answering that question, Carl. Thank you for submitting it. I hope we get some more questions that we can pose to Phil in our next podcast. Everybody, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the NFL weekend. Keep crying over the Hall of Fame voting about how average people get in. Maybe we can continue that conversation one of these days. But have a great rest of your week, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon on Phil and the Mic. Thanks so much.
Take care.